A new regulation has started in Pokemon Champions and 16 Mega Evolutions have been added to the roster. I wanted to cover teams featuring these brand new Mega Evolutions built by top players who are able to climb to Master Ball super quickly with them, or even climb highly within Master Ball tier with these Mega Evolutions. This video will feature teams built for /VGC around every brand new Mega Evolution except for Mega Raichu Y, Scolipede, and Phalanx. I haven't seen teams built around these Pokemon yet by top players, but if you think you've built a good team around them and want to offer it to the community, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section below. Anyway, thanks as always for joining me. My name is CybertronVGC, and let's get started. The 2026 Japanese national champion built this Mega Raichu Y team and went 9-1 with it in Master Ball tier. Mega Raichu Y is really interesting because it effectively feels like a glass cannon, but this Mega Raichu Y is actually incredibly bulky with near max HP and defense investment. Still has a fair little bit of speed with a plus speed nature and some special defense, and so when people saw Mega Raichu Y, they essentially see it as just a pure glass cannon. This is a interesting way to run it because you actually can survive attacks for a lot longer. Now, the thing about Mega Raichu Y is that it's really going to struggle into opposing ground-type Pokemon and attackers, so Garchomp is obviously going to be one of the premier ones. As a result, you're going to want multiple ways to hit Garchomp for super effective damage, and ideally pressure it for a one-hit knockout. So the team actually has a Choice Scarf Vanillux, which is going to be one of the absolute best Pokemon you can have into something like Garchomp. In addition, Basculegion can be good into other ground-type Pokemon that can be annoying. Incineroar gives you Intimidate into a lot of those physical ground-oriented Pokemon. And of course, Dragonite gives you another way to threaten something like Garchomp. Team also has Poison Touch, Poison Jab Sneasler. This is a set that started picking up in popularity at the end of Regulation MA. Part of the reason for this is because with Poison Jab and Poison Touch, you have really high odds of actually getting a poison, and that is super valuable into the more setup oriented compositions that you might fight in this format. And so of course Dire Claw is a really nice move, but the combination of Poison Jab and Poison Touch can be really annoying for teams that normally want to boost up their stats. So this Mega Raichu Y plays very differently from just a pure glass cannon, and also crucially has Substitute. With Substitute, you are able to block big attacks that normally will knock you out and use the partner Pokemon to deal massive amounts of damage. Everything on this team can do a lot of damage, and so stalling out a turn with Raichu with Substitute while your partner Pokemon gets a knockout or does a lot of damage can be really crucial. The thing to note about a Mega Raichu Y like this is that it is not going to get one-hit knockouts, but honestly, even without any special attack investment, Zap Cannon is still quite powerful and often will be able to two-shot things. Focus Blast does hit a lot of the format for super effective damage, for example, against opposing Incineroars as well as Archaludons, and so you can still be able to thread in a lot of key Pokemon, just not with an immediate one-hit knockout. Charcoal and Incineroar also gives you a little bit added damage into Flare Blitz, and as you can see here, this Incineroar is actually super physically invested as well. Does a lot of damage with that admin nature and 26 stat points in the attack as well. So overall, I think that this is a super interesting way of using Mega Raichu Y, and I think the Glass Cannon set is cool, but honestly not very consistent. And of course, Kona is one of the absolute best players in the world, winning the Japanese national championships recently. So I think this is definitely a starting point for those that might want to try out Raichu Y but not want to use a glass cannon set. 2015 World Champion Shoma Honami has been having an amazing season, just coming off a top 4 finish at the North American International Championships, and he created this really interesting team featuring Mega Dragalge as well as Mega Eelektross. Now, note that he said this is primarily a Mega Eelektross team, but Mega Dragalge, of course, has a lot of potential and gives you another damage dealer on the team. What's interesting about this is that you basically make it really difficult to knock out Eelektross through the combination of Grimmsnarl with Screens and Parting Shot, Incineroar with Intimidate as well as Parting Shot, and Sinistcha with Hospitality plus Life Dew. Mega Eelektross, of course, gets a boost to special attack, specifically on this set because it's specially trained, and every time you get that knockout, you'll be able to get more and more special attack boosts. This Eelektross actually has Discharge, and one of the cool things about this team is that you can use Discharge to knock out your own Pokemon, giving you boosts as well. So, for example, if you lead Hydreigon on Eelektross, your opponent brings you down to Focus Sash, then Discharge finishes off your own Hydreigon, well then you leave coming out with a +1 special attack boost, which I think is really neat. most of the offense is going to come from Eelektross as well as Hydreigon. Of course, if you opt for Dragalge over Eelektross, then the Dragalge can do a lot of damage as well. But it's a very defensive core with Grimmsnarl, Incineroar, and Sinistcha. In fact, you often bring all three of those Pokemon next to Eelektross. I plan on featuring this team on the channel soon, so if you want to see me play with Mega Eelektross specifically, you'll definitely want to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the upcoming videos. The team here has a lot of bulk across the board. So you can see Sinistcha is going to be basically max HP, max special defense. Grimmsnarl has a good mix between defense and special defense. Same with Incineroar. Incineroar here does have a little bit of speed with 12 speed points, and so that can often be a big deal in stopping opposing Incineroars from getting a parting shot off, which is really nice because I actually find that that's one of the most disruptive ways in shutting down Eelektross. Focus Sash Hydreigon allows you to burst things down, right? This means that you can Draco Meteor, Garchomp. You can also go for things like Earth Power into Pokemon like Incineroar and Sneasler. Snarl, really valuable into a lot of the special attackers that are popular in the format. So give this team a try. Dragalge and Eelektross, I think both really interesting ones. As mentioned, this is more of a Mega Eelektross team than not, but the fact that it has both means you can certainly lean into either option. Fede Campo, one of the best players in the world who's won regionals, internationals, as well as a global challenge, created this team around Mega Pyroar. Now, a lot of people are like, why would you use Mega Pyroar when Charizard exists in the format? But first of all, not being 4x weak to Rock is a really big deal. And it also means that you can pair the Pyroar with Heat Rock Torkoal. The Weather Rocks recently were introduced in Pokemon Champions in this regulation, but the awkward thing about using something like Heat Rock is you can't put it on Charizard. So, of course, Torkoal is generally the best holder of this item, and it means that with Pyroar, you get multiple extra turns of Sun to work with. So the combination of Torkoal and Pyroar means that you pressure with things like Helping Hand into Heat Wave or Helping Hand Overheat. Pyroar, of course, gets an increase to its fire type damage. So when you combine the Sun and Helping Hand support as well as its ability, this can really stack up very, very quickly. And it does feel like a lot of Rock type Pokemon have been used in Regulation and made teched to really beat Charizard, right? Lycanroc really rose in popularity towards the end of the format. So having a Pokemon that can stand its own and take a little bit less damage from Rock type attacks is really valuable. Otherwise, you've got dual Megas on this team with Mega Aerodactyl alongside the Mega Pyroar here, with the Aerodactyl having a little bit of HP investment, which is quite valuable in surviving attacks a little bit better. Garchomp, Basculegion, as well as Torkoal, all fairly straightforward. Just keep in mind that the Torkoal is actually max HP, max special defense. Some players are often used to just using max HP, max special attack Torkoal, but the Torkoal on this team is not designed to deal as much damage. It's really here to enable Pyroar to its full potential. So as a result, you don't have something like Eruption. It's not running Weather Ball either. It is mainly going to use Heat Wave to chip away at opponents, but Helping Hand is here to enable Pyroar as much as it can. And Yawn, of course, gives you the ability to put Pokemon to sleep, which is really valuable. The combination of Torkoal as well as Venusaur is another lead that can be disruptive, where you can just immediately start putting things to sleep through the combination of Sleep Powder as well as Yawn. So I think Pyroar kind of overlooked right now as well. I saw one clip on Twitter where someone posted Helping Hand Overheat in Sun not one-shotting a Milotic. At the end of the day, you know, it's Milotic. That's one of the bit bulkiest Pokemon in the format. So I think like even against a lot of Pokemon that do resist the Overheat, the Helping Hand combination can elevate you to the next level to secure knockouts. So it is definitely an interesting Mega Evolution, and this team was built by one of the absolute best players in the world if you want to try it out. For day one of the format, I wanted to personally build a Mega Staraptor team, and so I put together this composition. I just posted a video on it, so if you want to see me play with it, you can check out the video link down in the description below. Mega Staraptor is incredible. It has a great base speed of 110, amazing base attack, and it can do a ton of damage. With Contrary, you are able to self-boost your stats with things like Tickle onto Staraptor for an attack and defense boost, or Fake Tears for an immediate +2 special defense boost. So Staraptor is a Pokemon that can sustain for a long time, even with this set not really having any bulk, because you're able to increase your defenses and you've got Roost to heal up afterwards as well. Now, this team is fairly straightforward in terms of composition and build, and that was kind of the idea, right? I wanted something that could be easy to use but could win games quickly and have a ton of damage across the board. So the spreads are really straightforward for the most part, just max. Basculegion here just has a little bit of HP and defense to survive Sucker Punch from non-Black Glasses King Gambit, and then the Garchomp's 4 defense here helps out against opposing Dragon Claws from other Adamant or Jolly Garchomps. So generally, the idea behind the team is you want to go with Whimsicott and Staraptor. Golden goes really good to cover for the fairy types that otherwise give Staraptor trouble, and then Hisuian Typhlosion is really good into things like Frostlass as well as Mega Metagross. Both of those can be annoying for Staraptor because they can do a lot of damage to you, and you don't threaten them with a one-hit knockout. So the idea behind Hisuian Typhlosion is to be able to burst them down immediately. And of course, you're immune to Fake Out with Typhlosion, and in Best of 1, Frisk is always nice in scouting out your opponent's items as well. Otherwise, I would say I generally like going Whimsicott, Staraptor, Golden Goal +1 Pokemon, with that one often being Basculegion. Garchomp, of course, can be brought in with Rock Tomb into things like Charizard and Poison Jab into the Fairy types. Hisuian Typhlosion, probably the Pokemon I bring out the least with this composition, but really valuable into those problem megas like Frostlass and Metagross, as I mentioned. So yeah, I think that this is a fun and effective team to try. I put it together personally, and I think if you want something simple to climb the ladder with, would recommend this one. By the way, if you're enjoying the content, it would really mean a lot to me if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. I'm currently doing Pokemon content full-time here on YouTube with the release of Pokemon Champions, and I love making these videos for all of you. I've also made a video breaking down the Regulation MB format, as well as a video featuring the Mega Staraptor team, as I mentioned, so feel free to give those a watch as well if you're interested. Link down in the description below. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. Mega Staraptor has been getting all the love as a contrary Mega Evolution, but Mega Malamar also is super viable, and it's really strong paired with this Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl here has Parting Shot, Scary Face, as well as Fake Tears, and so you can make your Malamar really difficult to knock out very, very quickly. One of the nice things about Malamar over Staraptor is, of course, it gets access to Superpower, which increases your attack and defense every time you use it. In addition, it just has a really nice offensive spread overall, having access to Knockoff, which is just one of the best moves in the game, as well as Psycho Cut. So with this team, you can go with Grimmsnarl, Malamar, Sinistcha as a core, and then round things out with Sneasler, Basculegion, or Sylveon, all which are some of the best Pokemon in the format. The Sylveon on this team also has Yawn, so it's really disruptive in being able to stop your opponent from being able to wall Malamars effectively, right? If you can yawn a Pokemon that normally is used to check Malamar, force him to switch out, Malamar can get a couple of superpower boosts and then just become too difficult to deal with. The spreads on this team are fairly straightforward. Main thing to call out is that you are super, super defensive with both Sneasler as well as Sylveon. This isn't a major surprise. A lot of Sylveon and Sneasler spreads look like this in the previous regulation. With the Sneasler, right, you can take attacks like Garchomp's Earthquake, for example. With Sylveon, you can survive even the strongest physical attacks that often will be super effective into you. Things like Dire Claw or Iron Head, for example. And so you just have a lot of bulk to work with across the board. But of course, Malamar is going to be your primary star, and you generally want to enable it as much as possible. Mega Barbaracle has not really gotten a lot of attention so far, but it has some really interesting offensive coverage, and a player was able to make it to 1800 plus elo on day one of the format with this composition. It is a Whimsicott-based team with standard things like Tropical Berry, King Gambit, as well as Mystic Water, Basculegion. Of course, Garchomp now gets access to Life Orb, so that is one of the strongest items you can run on it. And you've got dual Megas between the Barbaracle as well as Frostlass. The main thing about Barbaracle is that it has insane offensive coverage and obviously has a great ability as well. So close combat, liquidation, rock slide just allows you to really hit a ton of the format for super effective damage, which is really, really nice. You pair that with Tailwind to cover for its middling speed, and this Pokemon can just threaten things with one-hit knockouts, right? Rock slide obviously is amazing into something like Mega Charizard. The liquidations can do a ton. Getting a same type attack bonus off both of those is really sweet, and close combat really valuable into steel type like King Gambit. Spreads on this team, I would say, are relatively straightforward. Note that the Frostlass is super bulky here. Garchomp has a little bit of HP and defense to try to help against opposing Dragon Claws, and the Basculegion here is a pretty standard spread that is trained to survive Sucker Punch from max attack non-Black Glasses King Gambit. So Barbaracle, just a Pokemon that I honestly have not seen many people use, and the fact that this team was able to go on a win streak, make it to 1800 elo, means that it is certainly a viable way to run the set and the Pokemon. A Japanese player won 16 games in a row and nearly made it to 1800 elo on the Champions Ladder with this Mega Scrafty team. Mega Scrafty is really interesting because it gets access to Intimidate before and after Mega Evolving, so you can really shut down opposing physical type attackers really, really quickly. This Mega Scrafty aims to set up with Sword Stance, then sustain itself with Drain Punch. Of course, knock off one of the best offensive moves in the game, being able to remove items, is really powerful, and Scrafty is going to be one of the best knockoff users in the format. You can pair the Scrafty with the Alolan Ninetales, which can set up the Aurora Veil, decreasing your opponent's damage output, and with Light Clay now being added into the format, it is even harder to knock out Scrafty. Combine Aurora Veil with Light Clay as well as multiple Intimidates and sustain from Drain Punch, and this Pokemon can stay around for a long time. Now, Scrafty obviously does not love going up against opposing Fairy-type Pokemon, so it's important to have answers into those. You've got Choice Scarf Golden Go here with Make It Rain as well as Steel Beam. Steel Beam allows you to just threaten with one-hit knockouts and allows you to play around even the threat of Wide Guard, and Roselli Berry Garchomp with Poison Jab was one of the most popular sets at the end of the last regulation, allowing you to actually trade positively into Fairy-types like Sylveon, Whimsicott, as well as Mega Floette. You've also got your own Sylveon on this team with Life Orb, which can burst things down, and an Aerodactyl with Tailwind as well as Dual Wing Beat. Aerodactyl on this team gives you really good coverage. Of course, it gives you speed control and also threatens Mega Charizard on opposing teams. So as you take a look at the spreads here, Scrafty here actually going to be fairly speedy. The Golden Go as well as the Sylveon are almost basically max. The Alolan Ninetales wants to be really fast here, but of course still wants to have a little bit of bulk as well. And then Garchomp has a little bit of HP investment to help sustain for a little bit longer. Ultimately though, I think really cool to see good use out of Mega Scrafty with Alolan Ninetales being a unique support for it, and then Choice Scarf Golden Go with Make It Rain and Steel Beam really scaring away Fairy types. Two-time Taiwanese national champion built this team featuring Mega Metagross. Now, I think Metagross is really interesting because there are a ton of different ways that you can run it and a lot of teams that you can flex it into. There's so many viable moves it gets, everything from things like Ice Punch to Stomping Tantrum to Meteor Mash to Bullet Punch to Psychic Fangs, or a Rock-type attack even for Charizard. This set has Iron Head, Body Press, and Thunder Punch, and the idea is that these moves typically aren't the strongest, but when you combine it with a coaching boost from Sneasler, they suddenly become really difficult to deal with. Meteor Mash normally is going to be Metagross's best Steel-type attack, but of course is inaccurate and is not as consistent. So Sneasler and Metagross is a lead that you can go with this team, and even if you don't get a boost on Metagross, it still can get knockouts onto a lot of common Pokemon and threaten a lot of others for 2-hit KOs. Thunder Punch gives you some nice coverage into things like Basculegion, as well as Mega Charizard Y, and Body Press is really nice when you get that defense boost from Sneasler. It's a dual Mega team, so you've also got Calm Mind Floette on the composition. If you decide you only want to run Metagross, though, you can replace the Floette with something like a Sylveon, for example. You've got the classic Incineroar Sinistra core, which, of course, synergizes really nicely with Calm Mind Pokemon like Floette in particular, and you've also got a Choice Scarf Rotom. Rotom is nice because, of course, with that Choice Scarf and Electro Web, you can get some speed control, allowing Metagross to outpace things that normally are even faster than it. You can also use Rotom for some immediate damage with Hydro Pump or Volt Switch, or try to spread burns with Will-O-Wisp. So I think what's cool about this is that it is honestly a pretty unique way of using Metagross. Like, I haven't seen any other Metagross set use Iron Head, Body Press, and Thunder Punch, but it makes a ton of sense when you combine it with coaching specifically from the Sneasler. Metagross here is going to have a lot of speed. It's quite important to be able to outpace things like Garchomp, let our max speed, as well as Mega Charizard Y, let's Timid max speed. So that's the idea here. Otherwise, you have Timid max speed on the Rotom as well. You really want to basically outpace the entire format with that Choice Scarf. Floette's going to be really, really bulky here with a ton of HP investment. Also going to be modest max speed, which is a pretty common benchmark these days, especially because you want the Floette to outpace things that are neutral nature around its base speed. Otherwise, you've got a lot of speed on this Incineroar, so keep that in mind. That, of course, means that you can often Parting Shot out first or Throat Chop against opposing Incineroars to prevent them from going for a Parting Shot. Also means that you can, could potentially use Throat Chop to stop things like Sylveon, for example, and clicking Hyper Voice. Sinistra here going to have a lot of special defense and defense as well, and it's a minus speed nature to take advantage of the fact that it has Trick Room. So if you're looking for a way to use Metagross, I think coaching is one of the best ways to enable it, and I think this team is really awesome. Rain is one of the compositions that I think basically got a buff in Regulation MB because of new Mega Evolutions that are really strong on it, like Swampert as well as Metagross. Mega Swampert's really nice, and there are a lot of different ways that you can use it on this team. You can pair it with Sableye, immediately go for Rain Dance into Wave Crash and threaten huge amounts of damage. You can lead it with Pelipper if your opponent doesn't have great weather control, and immediately, once again, threaten with Wave Crash. Or you can even lead it with the Archaladon, Mega Evolve to get the speed boost on the Swampert, flip turn, activate the stamina on Archaladon, bring in Pelipper, and start dishing out massive amounts of damage with Electro Shot. It's a dual Mega team with Venusaur and Swampert, and it often feels like they complement each other really nicely with them covering each other's weaknesses. Swampert in the ring with Wave Crash is just a ridiculous Pokemon, and High Horsepower, of course, gives you really amazing coverage into things like Electric-type Pokemon like Raichu, for example. Mega Raichu, obviously, is one of the Megas that people are using right now, and so to have a way to really threaten Mega Raichu for an immediate one-hit knockout, regardless of which Raichu it is really nice. So this team looks pretty similar if you played Regulation MA. A couple of things to note here. Venusaur and Archaludon are a lot more physically defensive than you might be used to, with Archaludon and Venusaur both running Bold, Venu having a ton of defense investment here. Normally, the Archaludons will run something like Calm or Modest, for example, but the plus defense just allows you to stack up against physical attackers a little bit better. Just keep in mind that then obviously you're going to do a little bit less damage. Otherwise, you've got max on things like Pelipper, Sableye. The Basculegion has defense investment to help against Sucker Punch from King Gambit. And then the Swampert here has a fair bit of HP as well as speed investment. The speed investment, by the way, on Swampert is to allow you to outspeed max speed Mega Aerodactyl when the rain is up. Mega Sceptile, I think, has been a little bit overlooked and is really powerful, especially when paired with a Discharge user. Because, of course, Mega Sceptile's ability is Lightning Rod, so if you use Discharge, you give yourself an immediate boost. This team combines Mega Sceptile with Choice Scarf Rotom Heat to allow you to get an instant boost while also dealing damage to your opponent. Sceptile often then can just finish off opposing Pokemon, right? Grass Knot, really good into water types like Basculegion. Earth Power, really good into things like Mega Raichu. The team also has Mega Floette to give you a secondary Mega option. If you don't have a Floette, Sylveon is something that you can consider on the team instead. Floette, of course, gives you really good coverage into things like Staraptor, which otherwise can be a little bit annoying for Sceptile to deal with. With Floette as well as Rotom on this team, you definitely have multiple ways to check those opposing Mega Staraptors. Otherwise, you've got some pretty classic Pokemon in Basculegion, as well as Life Orb Garchomp, and then a Focus Sash Aerodactyl to round things out. Obviously, Aerodactyl, a nice Pokemon to have against Charizards. Sceptile, even at +1, can't necessarily one-shot Charizard, so Aerodactyl gives you some additional good typing coverage and speed. This Aerodactyl just doesn't have Protect, so keep that in mind because it's a little bit more vulnerable to Fake Out. Otherwise, spreads on this team are super straightforward, basically max in almost every single Pokemon. Only thing to note here is that the Basculegion is very defensive, at 32 defense investment. So, of course, that can help against Pokemon like Garchomp, like King Gambit, and part of the idea is that you have Citrus Berry here, so you can sustain survive attacks that your opponents might not anticipate and do a lot of damage in return. But if you're looking for a solid Mega Sceptile team, then I think this is a really great starting point. In 2018, players used the combination of Blaziken with Bisharp to really great success. The idea was simple. Blaziken's a Pokemon that doesn't want to get intimidated, and so if you bring an Intimidate user like Incineroar, well, Bisharp gets a Defiant boost and can threaten with a lot of damage. 8 years later, and that Bisharp has now evolved into King Gambit, but the idea still stays the same. If you bring Incineroar or another Intimidator, well, King Gambit's like, thank you very much for the boost. I've got Life Orb. I just deal massive amounts of damage. Life Orb Sucker Punch paired with Blaziken often can be used as a 1-2 punch to just get knockouts onto a lot of the common Pokemon in the format. What's nice about Blaziken is that you can choose a turn, of course, to not Mega Evolve, get your speed boost, then Mega Evolve, and start dealing massive amounts of damage. The team also has a Torkoal, which of course sets up the Sun for Blaziken, allowing your Flare Blitzes to even do more damage, and also is disruptive with Yawn plus the Burning Jealousy. By the way, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Alex who created this team because first of all, it definitely is the coolest Mega Blaziken team I've seen so far in this format. He had a really great run in Ranked Ladder with it. And second of all, he actually wrote a free team report for this on Metafy, so please go check that out. I've linked it down in the description below. Super cool to not only build this team, but share it for free and also write a team report that's really in depth for it. So yeah, once again, please go check that out. That's in the description below. Anyway, to round out the team, you've got classic adaptability / Basculegion, Sylveon, as well as Mega Aerodactyl. Mega Aerodactyl, of course, gives you a secondary Mega that can still be used outside of Mega, although note that this set does not have Wide Guard or Protect. And then with Sylveon, note that you don't have Hyper Beam or Yawn. You're using Moonblast instead, which gives you more coverage into something like Kommo. Kommo actually can be really annoying for things like King Gambit, as well as Blaziken, so having Moonblast just gives you some more reliable damage into the soundproof sets that are out there. Spreads are fairly straightforward for the most part. King Gambit here has a little bit of speed. That, of course, can give you an edge against opposing Gambits. Also can take advantage of Tailwind. Sylveon has a classic mix of HP and defense, although not as physically defensive as other Sylveons you might be used to. Torkoal here is plus defense nature and has a lot of special defense investment. This is not really meant to deal as much damage, more meant to enable the Blaziken as much as possible. This is a dual Mega team featuring Mega Swampert as well as Mega Mawile. I think a lot of people see Mega Swampert as a team to use on just rain teams, but you can pair it just with Sableye and have a functional mode while not relying entirely on rain. So with this team, you have multiple different modes that you can go with. There's a coaching on the Sneasler as well, so you can pair it with Swampert, immediately go for something like coaching to boost up your Swampert, and then set up the rain with Sableye afterwards. Coaching, of course, can be used to boost up your Mawile as well, and Mawile, I think, is one of the strongest Mega Evolutions to use under Trick Room. So if you wanted to go a Trick Room mode with this team, you can lead something like Incineroar, Farigiraf, Mawile, plus one of Swampert or Sneasler in the back, or you can lean towards Rain, lead something like Sneasler Swampert or Sableye Swampert and start attacking immediately. One of the cool things about this team is that the Swampert has Wide Guard, which of course is a really great support move. So it means that you can still bring regular Swampert even if you are not planning on Mega Evolving it. And it also means, of course, you can combine it with the Mega Mawile and just choose the Mega Mawile and keep regular Swampert in its base form. So I think this is a cool hybrid between Trick Room as well as Rain, and you can lean into either mode, which is partially what makes the team so powerful. I think Mega Mawile in particular is a really effective Trick Room sweeper because it's slow, has incredible type coverage, right? Play Rough and Iron Head from this Pokemon often can just get one-hit knockouts if they are doing super effective damage. Sucker Punch is also just truly one of the strongest Sucker Punches that you can have in the format. So this is a really effective Pokemon. You just generally want to have the speed set up for it, and that's why it's important to set up the Trick Room. As you'll note here, a lot of bulk across the board with min speed natures on things like Incineroar and Mawile. Swampert here is just going to be Adamant, max attack, max speed. Same with Sneasler being Jolly. Sableye has a fair mix of special defense as well as defense to give you a spread across all the different Pokemon that you'll fight against in this format. Farigiraf here is still going to be Cobra Berry. Some people have been using Citrus on Farigiraf, especially on ladder, but I think Cobra just gives you a much better answer into Kingambit. And with this team having two different Intimidators in Incineroar as well as Mega Mawile, you definitely have to be a little bit careful about activating Kingambit and allowing it to just sweep opposing teams. And so, yeah, I think really cool hybrid here between Mawile and Swampert. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much as always for joining me. A huge thank you to all the players and team builders for building these teams so early on. Honestly, really impressed by the week 1 teams from this metagame. And so I hope that it can give you some inspiration for either some of the top megas that people are already using a lot or some of the more underrated ones. And of course, this is kind of a call to action as well. If you've built good teams around Mega Raichu, Wise, Scolipede, or Phalanx, please, please, please let me know. You can leave a comment down in the comment section below. I would love to get these 3 featured in a future video as well. So thanks for joining me. My name is Aaron CybertronVGC, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.